Hello fashion lovers, you're welcome back to my channel. If today is your first time joining this channel, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. So I'm going to be teaching how to make this gorgeous blouse and how to embellish the blouse. I made an A-line skirt with a detachable 1440 peplum for this outfit, but we're going to be talking about the blouse. Okay, so if this looks like what you're interested in, please keep on watching. On the shoulder line, I'm going to input my shoulder measurement, and I'll come down by 1 inch, and I'll connect to 3 inches on the shoulder for my neck width. So here I'm just inputting my armhole measurement, and I'm connecting these lines together like so. So here I'm just inputting my nipple to nipple measurement, as you can see, all the way down to the hem, and I'm connecting the lines like so. So this is going to have a yoke. So here I'm just taking 7 inches for my yoke, and I'll connect the lines like so. On the under bust, I'm taking 1 inch on both sides, all the way down to the hem, and I'll connect the lines, the points like so. On the yoke line, I'm taking 1 inch on both sides. On the bust point line, I'm going down by 1 inch and coming up by 1 inch. So I'm going to connect to my under bust and to the yoke part, as you can see, and I'm connecting the other side like so. So I'm just inputting my bust measurement, I'm inputting the under bust measurement, and then 2 inches that I remove for the contouring. I'm going to add the back on my waist as well, and I'll do the same thing on my hip line. Don't forget, whatever you use in contouring your bust, make sure you add it back before adding your seam allowance, okay? So now I'm putting down my side seam allowance, as you can see, and I will join these points together like so. On the bust point line, I'm going down by 1.5 inches and I'm connecting to the nipple point, as you can see. This is just to eliminate the excess bulge we usually have at the back of our outfit, because the back and the front are not the same. So you need to take your measurements so you know the difference between your back and your front measurement. So that's what you use for this part. So here I'm just shaping my armhole line, and the 2 inches I removed from the upper part, I'm replacing it, as you can see. So now I'm trying to get the neckline that I like for this top, and I'll connect the neck like so. Here I used 4 inches for the neck width and 3.5 for the neck depth. So I'm going to close the side dart. I just used my my paper glue for that part. If you don't have a fab paper glue, if you don't have a paper glue, you can as well use your sellotape to do this. If you still don't have a sellotape, just take your pins and pin that part together. So here I'm just filling the shortage we have there so that our piece can match up. Okay. So from the hip line, I'm going to connect with a curve all the way to the side dart intake. To the dart intake, as you can see, I want my blouse to have a nice shape. I don't want it straight. So that's the essence of going up by 2 inches. So now I'm just removing the dart that we do not need, as you can see. So I just decided to go down by half an inch on the yoke line. You can decide to do 2 inches or 1.5 depending on what you like, and then you can as well leave it straight, but I didn't want it straight. I just wanted it to be a bit to have a little sweetheart neckline. So that's my center front and my side front I just indicated. So now I'll cut out my dart, as you can see me do. So we don't need that, so I'm going to trash it. Now continue cutting So I'll cut out my yoke as well. Cut out the neckline and the shoulder slant. And we are done with our front piece, the drafting of our front blouse. So for the back, I'm using 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance. So I'm going to connect like so. Don't forget that our back is not the same length with the front. So don't make the mistake of using the same length we used for the front to draft the back. Please do not forget, take your measurement, take your back measurement and work with it accordingly. So here I'm just connecting the armhole line like so. So that's my hip line, and then 2 inches for my hem line. For the front piece, I used 2 inches for the hem as well. So I'm just connecting these lines like so. So now I'm just inputting my measurements, bust measurement, waist measurement, and then my hip measurement. So now I'm putting down my darts, my nipple to nipple measurement, and then I'm joining that point together. So I took 1/2 inch on both sides, and I'm going up by 2 inches from my hip line, and then I'll connect to the waistline. So for the back yoke, you can do whatever you like, but for this, I'm going on the armhole line. I took 4 inches, and then the other side I'm taking 7 inches, and I connect like so. I want it to have a slant, so I'm just putting the nipple to nipple measurement there, and I'll connect to my dart line. So here I just added my 2.5 inches seam allowance, and I've connected like so, and then I'm coming in by 1/2 inch on the armhole line, and then I'll connect like so. On the waistline, I'll go in by 0.5 inches, and then I will connect so that I will not have zipper bulge issues at the back. So here I've gone ahead to use stay on my velvet fabric before using paper stay because I want it to be a bit firm. Please do not make the mistake of using paper stay on your velvet first. It's going to give you an effect that you will not like. So as you can see, you go in with your stay first before using your paper stay. The reason I'm using paper stay is because I want it to be a bit firm. Okay, that's the reason why I'm using paper stay on top of the stay. So this is actually optional. Depends on what you want. My velvet was too light, so I decided to use my paper stay on top of it. So I'm just shaping this out now. And I'm going to do the same thing for all my velvet, both the front and the back. And then I'll give it a good press. So here I'm just cutting out my lining. Don't forget to make your lining 1 inch shorter on the hemline. Okay, 1 inch shorter than your main fabric. Make sure you arrange very well. I'm using satin for my lining piece. So this is a satin fabric. I love to iron. I can't even overemphasize this. It's very important as a fashion designer to always iron. Please iron your fabric. This is one step that you should not miss. Always iron. It gives you a very neat finish at the end of the day. So here I'm just cutting out 1 inch from my lining piece. So I'm going to do the same thing on all my lining piece. So this is my wadding. I'm using wadding. So I place the wadding from the under bust. So I'm just shaping this out like so. I'm going to use my hemming gum. So I'm just placing the hemming gum on top of my um, fabric. Note that I'm just placing this from the under bust alone. Under bust. So I'm just cutting out about 1 inch from the upper part because I'm going to sew down my yoke there and I don't want it to be too thick on that part, so I have to remove 1 inch from it. So hemming gum makes your wadding lay flat, and please always iron your wadding before taking it to the sewing machine. You can see I have excess that I'm trying to trim out, and it was the same thing I cut out when I was cutting out the wadding. So please always iron so that you can trim the excess that you have. So I'm going to cut out my wadding for my side front. As you can see, I'm just trimming the excess because I want that part to be straight. So I'll trim this out too. So here I'm just trying to give it a nice curve. I used 4 inches for this part. You can see that the wording is shorter by 1 inch. You don't want it to get to the yoke part. So I'm doing the same thing by cutting my hemming gum as well, and I will give this a good press. So I'm done pressing my wordings. I'm just joining my front piece together. I joined my lining off camera. You can see this is looking good already. So just give your curved part a notch. Just notch it like so. Don't let it get to your side seam. So now I'm joining my back piece. So I'm doing the same thing on the other side of my back piece, like so, as you can see. So for my bust part, I'm going to iron properly. Iron very well, open your seam, and I'm using paper stay to make sure that my seam allowance lays flat. So here I just used a white handkerchief to cover the bust part because I wanted to iron very well. So for my yoke, I've gone ahead to cut out my net using the yoke pattern that we already drafted. So here I'm just joining the neckline together like so. I decided to sew the neckline twice for the front. This is actually optional. I just decided to do that. So now I'm going to trim 0.5 inch from my, as you can see, just trimming 0.5 inches out. Then I'll open this up. I cut out 2 pieces for my yoke for the net. One serves as the lining, and I did the same thing for the back. So I'm joining the back neckline, as you can see. And I'll also trim out 0.25 from it. And here I'm just joining my side seam, my zipper allowance. Remember, I measured 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. So here on the yoke part, I only sew down 0.5, half an inch. So I have 1 inch left on my yoke. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other part of my yoke of the back piece. So after joining the back yoke together, I decided to sew the hem of the yoke so that I'll have it as one piece. I won't have any trouble trying to join it to my main blouse when I'm ready to join them together. So I'm doing the same thing for the front piece. So this is my other back piece. So I'm going to do the same thing. Sew down the neckline and then I will sew down half an inch for from the zipper allowance, and I will have 1 inch left. So the essence of trimming out your excess your seam allowance is so that you have a neat finishing. That's the essence of me trimming out 0.5 inches from the net. Okay, so I turn inside out, then I sew down the hem of the net together so that I'll have one piece like I said earlier. So I just sew down using 0.5. Sorry, I sew down using 0.25. Remember that we have to join it back to the main blouse using half an inch. So you don't want your joining to show, right? So that's the essence of joining it first with 0.5 inches. So here I'm trying to join the shoulders of my back and my front together using 0.5, half an inch, using half an inch to join, and then I'll trim out 0.25 from it. So I'll do the same thing for the other side. I'm just using pins to hold them together. 0.5, sewing down 0.5, that's half an inch, and then trimming out 0.25. So I'm done sewing down the net. So here I'm just putting my stones and I'll cover it with my handkerchief and then I'll give it a good press. I will continue like that till I fill up all the space. Don't forget, do not put stones on your seam allowance. Okay, now because I've already joined half an inch on my zipper allowance for the net, I decided not to start the net from that part. I left 0.5. As you can see, I left 0.5 so that I will still sew down that 0.5 on my main piece so that the net and the blouse will have 1 inch seam, 1 inch zipper allowance left. So now I'm just placing my lining piece and I'll sew this down by half an inch. I'm just trying to make sure that my that lines align. So I'm going to open this up now and top stitch on my lining piece. Whatever I do here, I'll make sure I do on the other back piece too. So I close down my hemline. I merged both hemlines of the lining piece and the main fabric together, and then I'm going to sew down 1/2 inch. I'll open it up like so, and I'll top stitch on my lining piece. So make sure you put your yoke inside the blouse and make sure you don't sew on your net. So now I'm just aligning my side seam. So here I'm just sewing down 0.5 from the zipper allowance. After joining your hem, make sure you sew from the armhole all the way down to the hem. You can see I'm sewing from the armhole all the way down to the hem. So now I'm going to bring out my yoke gently. You don't want to pull because net is very fragile. So I'm going to turn this inside out. From the armhole, you can see the way I'm bringing it out. So I'm just pulling gently. As you can see, I did not put any stones on the seam allowance and on my zipper allowance. If you put stone on your seam allowance, it's going to break your needles. So you need to avoid that. So I'm done sewing my back piece. You can see I've done the two back piece. You can see what this looks like. You can see my lining. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to arrange my net. Make sure you check your net so that it's not twisted. This is very, very important. Net is not easy to lose. So make sure you are patient and make sure your net is not twisted when doing this. So here I'm just going to pin down the center part of my net to my blouse, and then I'm going to sew 0.25 down first before taking my lining. So I'm doing this so that I'll have it, so that it will be one piece. I will not have any issues trying to join the lining. So this makes the job easier. So now I'm going to pin my net, the center part of my net. I'm going to pin it down to the body. So I'll pull it a little out of that curve that I have there, so that I will not mistakenly sew the part that I don't want to sew. So make sure your that aligns. So that's what I'm just trying to do here. So I'm going to sew this down using 1/2 inch. So I'll open this up now and top stitch it. I'll top stitch the lining part. And then I will bring my back piece inside like so. So I don't mistakenly sew on it. So I'll merge the hem together, hem of my lining and the hem of my blouse. And then I'll sew this down by 1/2 inch. So I'll top stitch this down on the lining piece. You can see the way I'm pulling the lining a bit. Pull your lining a bit and then top stitch. Don't forget we have our back piece in between the main fabric of my blouse, the front part of my blouse and the lining. So make sure you get it out of the way when sewing, you don't sew on it. So you can see from the armhole, I'm just arranging very well. So if you want to sew from the hem all the way down, make sure you arrange from the armhole, but I think it's best to sew from the armhole all the way down to the hem. It's better that way, but if you want to sew from the hem, make sure you align the armhole first, then sew it down. So I'm going to sew the other side of my the other side of my blouse. From the armhole now, I'm sewing all the way down to the hem using half an inch seam allowance. So now I'm going to bring out my back piece, pull it out gently. You don't want to make the mistake of ruining your net. That will mean starting afresh. You don't even want to start imagining that. So don't forget to remove all your pins. It's very, very important. So now I'm just bringing out the sides very well. So this is what the blouse is looking like. We are making progress. So I'm going to give this a good press. And as you are pressing this, please avoid the net. Avoid the net. Oh, I'm singing. Avoid the net. If you want to iron the net, make sure you use fabric to cover the net before you iron it. You can see the way I'm placing my iron. I'm not going close to the net at all. So I'm using my breast ball to give the bust a good shape. You don't want to press your bust on a flat surface. You don't want to do that. You will ruin your work. So I love to iron when I work. I love to iron. Don't wait until you complete your project before you iron. So I'm just inputting my measurements. I'm inputting half of my measurement now, as you can see. So I'm putting down my measurement for the back as well. So I'm just replicating what I have on the other side of my back piece. So now I'm going to join the front and the back together like so. Join the both sides, and I'll attach my zipper and my sleeve of the camera. So I'm just joining the other side now. And then we are done with this. So here I'm just using my soldering iron to remove the excess net from my applique. Don't make, you can see I placed my applique on, this is a tile actually. So you can place it on any other thing. Don't place it on your fabric, oh. It will burn your fabric. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm removing the excess net from my applique that I'm going to use to embellish the blouse. So this is what my blouse looks like. It's looking gorgeous already. So here I'm just placing my applique and I'm using pins to hold it. You can see me yawning. This is about 2 a.m. in the night, so I'm already tired and I need to deliver the blouse, the dress, the outfit first thing in the morning. So I have to work all through the night. So I'm still pinning this down. So before you finish you make sure you pin down. When you finish putting your pins, you move backward and see what you have. If it looks good, you can continue. If it does not look good, you can go ahead and adjust. I ended up adjusting this after checking. I feel that no, it's not supposed to be this way. It does not look nice like this. So I went ahead to adjust and I pinned down again. Okay, so I'm satisfied with this result now. I like the way it looks now. So I'm removing my pins gradually. You can see I'm removing it gradually. Don't remove everything. So here I'm using hot glue for this. Do not use wool gum or E6000. It will Glue gum is this glue gun is actually better when you are working with stuffs like this. But the best of them all is to use your needle and thread to tack this down, to tack it down. That's the best. But if you are too lazy to hand tack, you can use your hot glue gun. You can see the way and hot glue gun dries very fast. So you have to take it one step at a time. You can see the way I open this a little, use the hot glue gun, and you have to be very fast when doing this. You have to be very fast, and then place it down and press down. And be very careful when using hot glue gun. You can see what I'm doing. I ended up burning my hand several times. But this is what we do for a living. We get burnt sometimes. It's part of the process. So you can see me removing my pins gradually. You can see. So I'm almost done with the embellishing part of this dress. I also went ahead to add some pearls and the stones to it, as you can see. And here is the final look. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends. I love you.